let me tell you a little bit about myself and also where I think we're headed. Um, so essentially, this is our talk today. I want to give you a little bit about my CV, um, and I want to talk to you all about targeted impact. Is what I'm calling a kind of framework or working vision that I like to bring to my time here at the University of New Mexico. And I want to talk about going forward. Think about these questions. This particular question in particular, how would I answer it? And I pose that to my colleagues, and I pose that to all of us. That if a UNM graduate walked into a school, or if a UNM graduate walked into a situation um, where health equity is at issue, uh, what's going to happen? Um, I've been particularly struck by some opportunities I've had to visit with future candidates, or future, I suppose, executive vice presidents for the Health Sciences Center. And one I found to be particularly impressive, actually talked about the vision and mission values espoused by the Health Sciences Center. And I found them compelling enough that for me in this 46th day here, that I can adopt them just a bit. I'm sorry, it's actually the 36th day, not quite been that long. That UNM vision is to make more progress in New Mexico's health and equity than any other state. I find that bold and audacious, actually. And a part of my vision is to do something similar in education, that we will make more progress than you will find in any other state. And we'll do so in collaboration with partners. We'll do so across a range of measures. Now, a little bit about me, just so that you can get to know me. My parents were educators, and they were educators that, almost as a family, I think we were brought into a small East Texas town called Lufkin, Texas, basically to help with the integration of schools back in the 1960s. And as you can imagine, it was for the family, it was a turbulent time, and my parents did really quite a good job of helping us and helping that town make it through those turbulent times. They were so well regarded that at my parents' passing, former students and the folks of the town created a movement, I suppose, to name a school for my parents. And so that is a legacy, if you will, kind of legacy that I am bringing to my own personal mission in life. My schooling has been in Texas. I've got a BA in English Communication Arts at St. Mary's University in San Antonio. Master's in English Lit at Stephen F. Austin State University, and then I took my doctorate at Texas A&M College Station, PhD in Curriculum and Instruction. Along the way, 3 years as a high school English teacher, 6 years, probably about 5.5, working at community colleges as a composition instructor, and I also taught British literature and American literature. And then for the last 25 years, I've spent a good deal of time that you've heard about already at Texas Tech University, kind of our nearest neighbor in terms of Research One universities. While there, I taught in teacher preparation program. I also taught research methods courses, statistics, and some advanced statistics courses, and courses on diversity. And I did quite a bit of work for the College of Education at Texas Tech, and also work across the campus, from being on the athletics council to institutional effectiveness, groups and all sorts of groups. The multicultural core curriculum committee, lots of work there. 3 stints as an associate dean, but they're all relatively related. Associate dean for undergraduates, associate dean for graduates, and then and research, and then associate dean for academics and data. And then after 34 years altogether, I made it to UNM. Finally, I got here. I used to come here to have all kinds of fun and eat good food and meet interesting people. And in fact, love coming to New Mexico so much that I convinced my first and only wife that we should honeymoon here. And we honeymooned in Santa Fe for about a week or so. And I have 2 daughters. So that's my my life's path, I suppose. And there was one particular moment that I do want to talk to you about, and it really has to do with Hurricane Katrina, and an article that I wrote based upon that. In fact, watching what was going on TV during the Katrina disaster, I was so upset by what I saw that I started an article and invited some colleagues to join me on it. It was essentially just an essay, and the essay was focused on New Orleans schools, but focused on larger issues around New Orleans schools. In the middle of all of that, if you all recall, the people who lived in New Orleans were actually scattered around the United States until and resettled for a moment until New Orleans could be cleaned up and they could be brought back, and for those who wanted to go to be brought back. One group of those folks came to Lubbock, Texas. And when I heard that was happening, the Red Cross was asking for volunteers. I volunteered to join. My job when I joined was to be one of the folks to help the regular Red Cross volunteers. I was a runner, I think they called me, and I would just take papers back and forth. And the folks who were coming from the Superdome and the Convention Center in New Orleans were being flown in on various aircraft, and we were in this huge gym. It was probably a hangar at the former Reese Air Force Base, and folks were coming in and were standing in line, and some of the people had on clothes. They were still wet. The vast majority of the folks there were African American. And as far as the Red Cross volunteers were concerned, who were there at that particular time, I was the only African American in the room at that time. And they had all of the people standing in the line and had paperwork to get. They were waiting to get vouchers to get food to go to Walmart and local supermarket in order to get things that they needed. And there were just several problems that ensued. And I worked behind the scenes and literally whispered in the ears of my Red Cross colleagues as to different ways that we can manage what was going on. I also had to counsel some of my colleagues as to how they can work with this predominantly African American group. And I pulled them aside, in fact, without being insulting. It was about a 6 to 8 hour day, as I recall. And I came back the next day just for a little bit. And by that time, most of the people had been settled. But in any case, I did that bit of work. Now, I also, at that time, attended a church that was a predominantly African-American church, and some of those New Orleans folks who were resettled in Lubbock were attending that particular church. And I noticed a group of people who were staring at my family and me, and we tend to cut out right before benediction in order to beat the traffic. So we were usually some of the first people out. And successive Sundays, I noticed they were sitting closer and closer to us. We tend to sit in the same spot. And then once we were leaving a little bit early, those folks got up and walked out with us and paused. And they said something to me that really changed um, a trajectory in my life, beside what I wrote in that essay. Um, um, I can remember one individual saying, he said, "Were you the guy who was at Reese Air Force Base in that gym?" And I said, "Yep, I did some work there." He said, "We remember you." He said, "When you walked into the room, things started popping." And that notion of when you walked into the room, things started popping, has stuck with me for the last 16 or so years. And so I bring to the enterprise of leadership, I bring to this particular enterprise a kind of measurement bias. And by that, I mean whether quantitative or quantitative, what's going to happen when we walk into the room. And that is something that drives me. It is something that I think about when I lay down, when I get up in the morning, when one of our graduates walks into the room. What's going to happen? What will be different, and how can we measure it, qualitatively or quantitatively? When one of our professors, one of our lecturers, one of our instructors walks into the room, what's going to happen? And I would hope that we will have outwardly facing values where we're much more concerned about what's happening in our communities than we are concerned about what's happening, let's say, between one department versus another department. When one of our staffers walks into the room, when one of our staffers is working with a student or working with a faculty member, what's going to happen? And I would hope that there will be great customer service. There's going to be efficient. We're going to find different ways of doing things. And we're going to find solutions. You know, I can remember being a little bit ashamed of being in my former life at Texas Tech and a student not knowing what to do. So they asked a parent what to do. This was about 2002 or so. The student asked a parent, and the parent had attended 20 years earlier and told them exactly what they needed to do and what form they needed to get. And I thought that I was astonished that in 20 years, from the 1960s to the 2000s, it seemed at that particular time, there were actually forms that had not changed in that period of time, 20 to 30 years. And we've just got to be better than that. And I know that we can and we will be. So, and outcomes focused. And this is a working vision. Any kind of vision involves everyone who's in the enterprise. But this is what I'm bringing right now, based upon what I know about the college and my experience in the last 30 to 40 days. Just this morning, I had a wonderful opportunity to spend some time with Dr. Sanjeev Arora, the ECHO program at the Health Sciences Center. And they have set for themselves as a goal to mentor every educator in the state. And they were going to basically create their own school of education within that program. And finally, someone got an insight and said, well, why don't we talk to the people in the College of Education? That program is absolutely fantastic. It's been received some recognition from former president, that would be President Obama. They have an international focus, and then also they received some recognition from the MacArthur Foundation. I mean, it's just astonishing. And we are going to be able to partner with them in some way. I think we absolutely ought to be the unabashed and unassailed leader in American Indian education. But our focus, I believe, needs to be on outcomes and how, when that graduate of ours walks into the room, what type of impact will they make? Leader in Latinx education, and in the many ways that we could take a look at Latinx education we should be the leaders. We've got to bring back some sort of a focus on educational technology. Within the last 6 months, the entire education world flipped to online. And there are faculty who are asking for our help. And these are K-12 faculty and K-12 educators who are asking for our help. They want to see our leadership. We are going to be there. Advanced instructional design. I actually would have a moment here if we had time to show you a video, but I talk too much and talk too long. And so, but I would like to talk about, I would like to mention that there is a project that I've been affiliated with that uses some advanced instructional design. We ought to be on the vanguard. We will be on the vanguard of pushing the envelope forward and improving how we teach all types of students. And this particular advanced instructional design that I have in mind, it's called Productive Failure. And it is using student failure and then also student failure to help them learn, but in a very positive and in an affirming environment. The teachers who are involved use project-based learning, and however, instead of what we used to call direct instruction or even lecture, they use a Socratic method in teaching students, and they just had fantastic success with it. This particular project that I'm describing is called Systems Go, and they actually teach students to build rockets, and they teach them pre-engineering skills and 21st century workplace skills by of course having them build those rockets. The largest of those rockets are fired at White Sands Missile Range. The military was so impressed by the project that they actually shut down White Sands Missile Range for a day, and they let the high school kids have it. And finally, we certainly want to do more with STEM education, because certainly that's the future. There was someone not too long ago who told me that about 80% of our economy, if you take a look at 80% of our economy, it's involved in technology. There's some sort of technology that's involved. So we want to have a powerful role, an important role, particularly with the labs that we have here in New Mexico and all of the science that goes on here, the scientific research. STEM has to be a focus for us, and we want to be a leader in that with the education community. There are challenges going forward. COVID-19 has been an amazing challenge. It forced us online here at the university, and it's forced our clients and it's forced them online too. Begin to rethink lots of ways that we can do all kinds of things. It's also exposed all kinds of intersections of issues in our society, between the intersections of race and poverty, to the intersections of health and unequal opportunities to learn. So with that vision in mind that I threw out to you, I want you all to know that as a college, we're going to come together and we're going to rise to meet these challenges. And I think I'd like to call it audacious action, and certainly an outward focus. Sometimes being the ivory tower means that we can become sort of self-absorbed, but I don't think we're going to have that here. We are going to be out in the field and helping folks, and as necessary, we'll compete if we need to compete. Now, I spoke to you all about the rocket program called systemsgo.org. One of our sister universities, New Mexico State University, is giving a $1,000 scholarship to every student that graduates from that program. And these students are interesting enough going into essentially a couple of different areas. They're going into engineering, and they have graduates all over, from jet propulsion labs to NASA to SpaceX. And they either go there, are they coming into teaching? They're coming into teaching as STEM teachers because they want to replicate that great experience they've had for other youth. So I'll leave you with this working vision that I have to make more progress in New Mexico's education and health equity outcomes than any other state. And we will do it with partners.